ucamu weqa ucingo.
All these sounds you just heard have meanings in their respective languages. Your mouth is capable of making thousands of different sounds, but we actually only use a handful of them when we speak. From the clicks of Southern Africa to the whistle speech of the Canary Islands, some languages use sounds that don't even feel like human speech. In fact, some of the sounds we'll talk about today are only found in a few languages. Let's begin nicely with some sounds you can find in English but are common in other languages. Nasal vowels. The main example of these vowels you can think of is likely French or Portuguese. They are also found in Hindi and a lot of other languages. These vowels are often hard to grasp for people who don't speak a language with them, as the sound is not only made with the air coming out of your mouth, but also from your nose at the same time. Nasal vowels are produced by lowering the soft palate. These vowels are a bit of an oddity, but they remain common. Let's talk about another strange sound, which is once again found in French. Uvular trills. The main known example might once again be French, and mainly the French R.
Ra, ra.
But this sound is actually found in many languages, and the other main examples of well-known languages to have this sound are Arabic, Dutch, German, or Hebrew. It's also found in many other languages. A uvular sound means that the sound is articulated with the back of the tongue at the uvula. A trill sound means it's a sound where the air is directed over an articulator so that it vibrates. This can be the tongue or the uvula, for example. In the case of this trill consonant, it's the uvula, not the tongue, that vibrates. So a uvular trill is a combination of both. To this fun sound, we can also add a similar one, the epiglottal trill. It is found in languages like Agon and Arche. In these languages, you vibrate the epiglottis, the flap of cartilage that covers your windpipe when you swallow, and you vibrate that against the back of your throat. Now that we talked about some strange vowels and consonants, let's briefly switch to another oddity in human languages, tonal languages. The most famous example is probably Mandarin Chinese.
Ma, 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 ma.
But there are a lot of other tonal languages, and a lot of them are actually spoken in Asia, like Cantonese, Vietnamese, or Thai. Tones are something we all use in our languages, but a tonal language is a language where tones can change the meaning of a word. For example, when I'm speaking, I can change the tone of my sounds, but that won't change the meaning of my words. I might use that to emphasize a specific word, but the meaning stays the same. This is not the case in tonal languages. Each tone has a specific phonological role, meaning they can change the sense of a word. Let's talk about ejective consonants now. Compared to the previous sounds we talked about, there is a chance that you are not familiar with these sounds. You may not hear a difference between
Da, a da, a ta,
or
ba, a ba, a.
These are ejective consonants. These consonants are non-pulmonic sounds produced by trapping air in the mouth, closing the vocal folds, also called glottis, as to prevent lung airflow, and then raising the larynx to build pressure, which releases with a sharp pop when the mouth closure is broken. About 20% of languages in the world have ejective consonants. By the way, if you like linguistics and languages, you can subscribe to this channel, where I frequently upload videos on these topics. Now we're approaching the end of this list, but there are two more candidates that I need to talk about, and which are probably the top candidates for the weirdest sounds in human languages. First, let's talk about clicks. Clicks are quite famous. The reason is that some languages can have many different click consonants, and they all have a different meaning. It's likely that to you, these sounds don't make much sense, but if you spoke a language with clicks, they all would have different meanings.
Ucamu weqa ucingo.
They are as different as f or v and t or d, and so on. What's interesting is that most people are a bit familiar with clicks to an extent. They just don't associate a phonological meaning to them. Think of calling a horse, or sometimes any other animal. Calling a horse is often associated with a click sound, which for a non-click speaker is just a sound to call a horse, like. It's also likely that if you try doing that, you may realize different click sounds, but they all would sound the same to you, it's just a click sound. But in languages where clicks have a phonological value, the sounds have different meanings. When making a click, your tongue can tap in different places in your mouth, your front teeth, the top of your front teeth, your palate, or even your cheek. Depending on where it's realized, the phonological meaning will be different in a language with clicks. There are a lot of options when it comes to clicks. For example, the Thai language has at least 20 different clicks. Each of them has a different phonological value. What's quite interesting about click languages is that they are only found in Africa and mainly in South Africa, the area, not just the country. No one really knows for sure why this is the case. What's even more fun is that a language with clicks can also be tonal, combining two different aspects we mentioned. That's the case of the Xhosa language, or should I say, Xhosa. Clicks have fascinated people and linguists for decades as they are quite unusual but also so interesting. The last sound of this video I want to talk to you about are whistle languages. Languages that are based on whistling and whistle sounds. Instead of words or the typical sounds that you would find in a language, you use whistle sounds. There are about 80 languages where whistling has a phonological value. The reason that some languages have whistling as a feature is because it allows communication across a large area as opposed to just shouting. Whistling carries sound further, making it easier to communicate across vast distances. People who can speak using whistle languages often use their hand or fingers to modify the sound produced, leading to a range of sounds that can be created to convey meaning. A famous example of that is Silbo Gomero, spoken in the Canary Islands. It's often described as a dialect of Spanish or a register of Spanish, as people use a mix of Spanish and whistles to communicate across miles of territory. The other famous example is probably Pirahã in Brazil, a language that has been the center of discussion in linguistics for decades. But that language is worth a dedicated video about it alone. In Pirahã, whistling is also used to communicate across large portions of land from its people. These are just two examples, but keep in mind that whistle languages are found across the globe and not just in one specific area compared to the clicks from before. And once again, in some of these languages you can find other features described earlier in this video, such as tones. There are still plenty of interesting sounds that are not common found in some languages. I just scratched the tip of the iceberg here, but there's definitely a lot of other weird sounds that deserve some attention.